All right, welcome back to the Don't Hassle the Hoff show. We have a very, very special show this evening. We have some special guests. We are going to be talking about Tundra Bowl, which is exciting. If you are watching the Twitch stream currently right now, we have the last video of on the Tundra Twitch that was up. So it's the very end of the Division II championship where I think Kramer came out from the losers bracket and won, and then we will have the rest of, provided we take an hour here, the rest of the Twitch stream going all the way through the championship. I have two special guests with me tonight. I have TecmoBo and RetroNathan, the founder of Tundra Bowl. First of all, TecmoBo, welcome, buddy. My partner in crime and announcing at Tundra Bowl. How you doing, man?
Great. You made it easy on me. First time I announced, and you were pretty good throwing it to me whenever you needed more info.
Yeah, I have beef with TecmoBo, just so everyone knows, because he quit my league online, and it's making me very sad. So I just basically incessantly tag him on our Discord channel, but especially when we're making fun of other people. And also, last but not least, I have RetroNathan, the founder of Tundra Bowl. Buddy, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
Doing great. Special shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for all the work that you did over the weekend, and thanks for having me on.
All right, well, dude, thanks for coming on. I think this is really cool to do this. I can't wait to talk Tundra Bowl. Tundra Bowl, you know, of all the tournaments I've been to, granted, I know Madison is like the king of tournaments, and I know it's kind of like a sore subject for some people right now, but I'm excited. I really do thoroughly enjoy Tundra Bowl, probably more than any other tournament that I've been to so far, just because of you, how it's run, the announcing aspect, all that good stuff, and the format. So we can kind of get into all of that. But before we get on with this, Nate, is there anyone you want to thank at Tundra Bowl that maybe you didn't think before, that you just want to give a shout out to now before we kind of move forward?
Oh man, there's so many people I want to thank, especially, you two, the team, the Tundra Bowl team. They're just phenomenal. Without them, the day wouldn't run as smoothly as it did. The sponsors that we have, the Watering Hole does a phenomenal job each and every year hosting us. Game Trade, they sponsored our events. They're the main event sponsor for the last few years here, and they have a phenomenal store. And, obviously all the players that travel from all over. We've got 9 different states this year we're represented. And, I just really appreciate all the players coming out and spreading the word. And, like I said, without the players, sponsors, people, bringing awareness to what we do, it wouldn't be what it is. So I'm really grateful for a lot of people, because this is far more than just a one-man show.
So what happened? Like, how did you, what made you come up with running Tundra Bowl, and all that good stuff? I mean, obviously it's grown every year. If you said it before, people didn't know that. But how did you come up with it? Like, why did you start it? Had you gone to other tournaments? How long you been in Tecmo? Kind of give me the whole lowdown.
Sure. Well, first things first, I know most guys grew up with Tecmo. I actually didn't own a Nintendo until my early 20s. And I didn't pick up a controller playing Tecmo until my mid-20s. So the way that this started out was we actually, my buddy Swags, who, is our digital media guy, we used to run Retro Forever, which was like reviewing old to new video games and those type of things. He found a ROM one day of like the updated ROMs that T-Borg does. So we ended up playing those ROMs at my house, and we used to do those quarterly. So 4 times a year, we'd have a Tecmo Super Bowl tournament here, just with the new ROM. And then somehow we ended up managing to find out that there was a tournament in Madison. And I can't remember, I think that was 2013 that I had gone down to. That was my first one, if I remember correctly. And so went down there and, tested the waters there and really enjoyed it, and thought that, Green Bay would serve it well. We wanted to be kind of a preseason kickoff to Madison when I was talking with the Holz Powers. And so that's how we ended up starting Tundra Bowl. And, it's grown every year since, like you said. And, we're real happy with where we've come from and where we are now and where we're going.
That's great. TecmoBo, how did you find out about Tundra Bowl? Is it just because it's one of the major tournaments now? I mean, what made you choose to go this year? Because this was your first year, right? TecmoBo, you still with us, buddy?
Yeah. So actually, I played in the Chicago tournament a couple of months ago, and ended up doing worse than I wanted to, but the prize I got was free entry into Tundra Bowl. So I'm like, there we go.
Oh, that's great. So would you have, okay, here's this question of the night. Would you have gone if you didn't have free entry?
I think so. I was thinking about it for a while. It was on my list because, you know, Nate clearly runs a good tournament and it's been on my radar for a while. And plus, I think the clinching factor for me this year would have been the fact that Madison is, you know, moved both in location and in time. So I don't know if I'm going to Madison, so this can kind of take the place of that for me.
That's great. That's great. So then, so Nate, when you like started Tundra Bowl, obviously, you know, just and then we can kind of get into other stuff, but this the nuts and bolts of like running the tournament and the growth. Where do you find all the equipment, all the consoles, all the TVs, all that good stuff, you know, and a location? Like, how do you find that kind of stuff?
Sure. So after doing some research, I decided that it would probably be best to own as much of the equipment as I possibly could. You know, it's great that people bring things, and you know, people in the Tecmo community are more than willing to, you know, bring a system or a CRT here or there. But I'm one of those people that, you know, if I say I'm going to do something, I want to make sure that I'm able to follow through on it. So in order to kind of alleviate some of those maybe last minute cancellations of equipment that I was hoping for, I want to make sure that, you know, I had the equipment. So slowly and steadily, you know, Swag's donated one, and there's a lady actually at the watering hole that saw that we were doing a tournament, and she donated a whole lot of, like, it was a Nintendo system with a bunch of games. And so I've accumulated them over time. So my basement was filled full of CRTs for a while. Luckily, the watering hole carries our TVs every year, and they host them there. So my basement actually can have some space, luckily. But it's been you know, it's been a process, you know, working with Game Trade, and they always contact me too when they get Tecmo Super Bowl carts in, and so it's just been a process over the years.
Well, so then if the tournament, you know, booms or grows or just blows up or whatever, like let's just say because everyone heard this show, you know, crossing fingers, everyone wants to go to Tundra Bowl next year, you know, I mean, how do you acquire enough TVs to handle the growth?
Sure. It's, you know, finding stuff on like Facebook Marketplace or on, you know, Craigslist and stuff like that. There's a lot of tube TVs that typically go. You know, I've tried to cycle some of them out. We had 2 spare ones sitting off to the side that, you know, we used last year, but we didn't use this year because I picked up some better ones. So, you know, it's always a matter of really scouring it. This is a year-round thing for me. You know, I'll take a month or 2 off here of like really hitting anything on it. Once the recap and stats are done, but you know, after that, I'm looking for prizes again already for next year, and you know, it's something that if you want to do it and do it well and make sure that the experience is what means the most to people, it's something that you really got to pour a lot of time and effort into. And by estimating, I probably threw a little over 1,000 hours into this tournament alone this year. So, you know, if we all of a sudden explode and exponentially grow, I think it's something that, like I said, Tecmo people are very willing to bring a system or two, or, you know, bring a CRT. You know, it might be something where, you know, we ask for the help of that until we are able to get the equipment ourselves. But, you know, I don't see it all of a sudden tripling in size from one year to the next. I think if we can continue a steady growth from one year to the next, that we'll be able to sustain that really well.
Great. King of NHL 94 asked in the Twitch stream chat, what is the biggest challenge Nate faces each year for this tournament?
Boy, biggest challenge I think I face every year is just the time factor. You don't want to take too much time away from family, obviously, with things. But again, like I said, I want to do the best that I possibly can for this event. So I guess it's the pouring of time into things. And one thing, too, that we realized, and we can talk about this a little later, is we didn't have a whole lot of like Green Bay area guys coming out. And I think that's a little bit of a challenge to us too, is because we're not readily known around the area as much as I would like to be at this point, considering, you know, we're in our 6th year. So it's something that's kind of part of why we created the Division 2. And we can talk about that more in a little bit here, but, you know, we want to come up with creative solutions to kind of get the word out there, and social media only does so much. Sponsors hopping on board this year obviously help, but unless you're sticking money into advertising and stuff, you know, that takes away from the prize pool, and that I want to make sure that we can give away as many awesome prizes and cash that we can to people.
You know, speaking of money, can we just put the the falsehood to rest once and for all here that there is no money to be made in Tecmo?
Yeah, there's no money in Tecmo. Oh my goodness, there's absolutely nothing in Tecmo as far as if you're organizing a tournament. So let's put that to bed right away.
I mean, I just want to say that out loud. I mean, I hope everyone hears it. I mean, if someone makes money in Tecmo, please, I'll give you my cell phone number. Contact me. I want to know how to do it. I'll join you, because as of now, I don't know if there's a way.
I think the biggest challenge that we face on game day is probably just manpower. We have a phenomenal team. We made some executive decisions this year on how to streamline things, and it worked really well, but it's still a matter of really the logistics, what it comes down to. It's the little hiccups here or there that you got to kind of solve on the fly, and that can be challenging as well. But yeah, I mean, going back to your point, I don't know who's making money in Tecmo, but it's not me.
Yeah, I would tend to think that nobody is, but if they are, please, I'll give you my cell phone number and we'll chat. You mentioned that this year, and I know this was a big change this year compared to other years, is that you changed it to 2 divisions. So, what made you decide to go to a Division 1 and Division 2? Because I know there might have been some grumbling about that. Because I mean, and TecmoBo, you can comment on this too. I mean, TecmoBo, you didn't play last year, but I did. It was actually my first live tournament ever. First time I played console since I was a kid. And I was just played online when I got involved and stuff. But to me, it seemed like Division 1 was really effing hard this year. Like last year, it's kind of like you had like one person in your group last year. If you were one of the 1-2 guys on your 4-person group last year, basically the 1-2 guys battled it out. And then the 2 other guys were kind of like people who probably couldn't hang. And this year, it's like the whole division or the whole like group was just, I mean, maybe you might have had like one guy in your group that might have been, I don't want to call them a layup, but for lack of a better word, as close to that as possible. And then everyone else was just a complete like hard-nosed thing. I mean, TecmoBo, did you find that your group was really hard?
Yeah, I thought everything was pretty solid all the way through. And then even once you get in the bracket, the top 32, I mean, everyone was so good. There was no real favorable matchup that I was looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get to your bracket here in a second, TecmoBo, just to touch on it real quick, just because of the story you told me before we went live here. But Nate, what made you choose to go from the full like all one big group play and then you seed to the 2 divisions instead?
There were a couple different factors. The last 2 years before Tundra Bowl VI here, I always try and go around to really try and go around to get feedback from people that are new, do better, see how their experience is, see if they're having a good time. It's just a live measuring stick of trying to see how we're providing that experience for people. And, there were probably about 3 or 4 people in those 2 years that had said, it's okay. I've gotten blown out all my games. I thought I'd be a little more competitive. I'm having an okay time. So what I really took to heart on that was, if guys are getting matched up in a group, even with people that are, kind of okay, but they're still losing, if they're going 0-4 and getting blown out every game, that's not a very enjoyable experience for people. So I wanted to take that Division 1 and Division 2, make that Division 1 really the veteran and hardcore player type people in that Division 1 competing for those cash prizes. And then Division 2 would be more of your, if you got a losing record in Tundra, you really enjoy it, but you're that year after year guy that wants to keep playing. Or if it's a newer tournament experience for you, it's a much lower price point. It's $20 cheaper, and you still end up with a T-shirt and door prizes you're eligible for, and NFL prizes and gift cards and stuff in the bracket. So there's not a huge step down as far as like the prizes and things that you get or that you're eligible for. It's more of the competition. And I guess unintentionally we created, in my opinion, I think it's the most difficult tournament ever created in, like, when you take Division 1 as by itself, and that's on sheer numbers and talent combined. You could probably come up with 12 guys that, you kind of create a super difficult tournament. But to have the 44 guys that we had in Division I and have talent top to bottom just absolutely stacked. It was a really fun experience. And to be honest, I didn't hear one negative thing from this split with Division I and Division II. People are actually very happy with the split. And then that gives them more options too if they want to come back the next year, so they can see the talent levels between the two.
Sure. Well, so, I mean, TecmoBo, speaking to the point of how hard the bracket was, so you were the top #1 overall seed in the bracket. I think you went 4-0 in group play, had like an 80 or 85 point differential. So you got the #1 seed, and you played a guy that you were familiar with. Had you played this guy in Chicago, I think you said before?
I mean, not only have I played him in Chicago, I drove up here with them or rode up here in the Mortmobile.
Oh, so basically, for those of you who weren't following the Tundra Bowl broadcast or the bracketology, TecmoBo was actually, I think, the first game I announced when I got on the mic, and he was playing Green Magic, right? That's the guy's name. I think
Green Magic.
Yeah, I think it's Green Magic. So, and obviously, unfortunately, TecmoBo, the #1 overall seed, I think he just, he's been killing it online, multi-time HSTL champion, which is the original ROM league, the best league in the land, the league I actually run online. I still think we have a waiting list of 26 people. We could almost form a whole other league just from our waiting list. It pretty much
might need to be 27. I might as well throw my name on there now.
You might as well. It's a year and a half easy waiting list right now. And Prime Time, who just took your spot, was waiting about a year. So it's about a year and a half. Anyway, so you lost in round 1, but honestly, Green Magic was the 32 seed, but he didn't seem like I mean, was he like the hardest 32 seed there was, or what goes on there?
I mean, he was the hardest one I could have ever played, probably. I mean, you look at the group play overall, I mean, we can talk about everyone's experiences, the people we were surprised by. Mort went 0-4. Green Magic, who is very good and has beat me before in tournaments and elimination games, went 1-3. There are a bunch of other guys that I was very surprised by their records, and that meant that the bracket was pretty jumbled in terms of seeding by skill, and it was pretty hard to get through, obviously.
Well, yeah, I actually think Regulator might have gone 2-2 in group, maybe, or maybe not. I don't remember if I saw that. I mean, Getz obviously.
Yeah, 2-2 or 3-1, but not a great point differential. I mean, I remember if I won out, it would have been through Green Magic and then through Flow and then through Regulator just to get out of my half of the bracket.
Yeah, it was definitely a murderer's row there. But so you lose the Green Magic in the round of 32, and I'm going to go back to Nate here in a second. But I mean, obviously that stinks. So there's one round, for those of you who aren't familiar with Tundra Bowl, where they basically seed everybody from group play in the round of 32. The round of 32 is single elimination, and then once we get to 16, Sweet 16, whatever you want to call it, that's when it turns into double. So obviously, no one wants to lose in the round of 32 because you lose and you're out, when everyone wants to get to the double elimination. So, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you, or ask you how that felt to lose in that round, especially as the #1 overall seed, because I lost in that round too for the second straight year. Granted, the first year I lost to a really good player. This year I lost to a good player as well who was playing out of his mind, but in a game where I just got some bad Tecmo breaks. But Nate, so why do you actually not just go double elim the whole time? Is it like a timing thing where you just don't have enough time to do it, or what makes you make like a round of 32 single and then it's double at 16, or just why is it different? If you could answer that.
Sure. In the past, I know Madison's been double elimination either at 4 or at 8. People are pretty standard as far as that goes. For us, a lot of it's a time factor for the round of 32. That's probably the biggest factor. But I also like the sudden death aspect, because then you get those Cinderella stories that, in one game they can buy their ticket and punch their ticket into the Sweet 16 to go on a Cinderella run. And, this year was just another example of that as we, go through this bracket. You're talking somebody who got into the Final Four that most people probably wouldn't have predicted getting into the Final Four.
That's probably a good point there too. And let's just touch on Mort for a second here. So I personally watched 3 of Mort's 4 losses, and obviously Mort is really well known in the Tecmo community. He's got his Mort blog. I actually got beat in group play I missed a JJ whiff open in the end zone as time expired to tie the game. And when the guy was running, he was doing those motion runs, where you can go run 1, run 2, or run 4 motion runs. And for those of you who don't know what I mean by run 1, run 2, and run 4, it's just going left to right, the running plays you can pick. And what he was doing is he was running. I was grappling because I could out tap him. I was grappling the guy in the line that was going to chase him, and he was going backwards to the QB and then running forwards, and the QB was basically acting as a drone blocker for him. And I finally say to him, I say, dude, his handle was DPS. I go, dude, I've never seen that before in my entire life. Where did you get that from? And he said, Mort. And actually, I guess it's on Mort's blog or whatever. So I don't know if you guys had seen that before. But so obviously, Mort has a large impact on everybody. But what I would say is, so I watched him go at least 0-3. And then I guess the 4th game, Gatz told me he had some rough luck. But to be honest with you, he just had a bad day. I thought he was thoroughly outplayed, by Big Red. Tundra Yeti could have gone either way. It was just a hard-nosed game. And same thing with Primetime. It could have gone either way. But, at least against Big Red, he was thoroughly outplayed. I mean, did you guys watch his games at all? Do you have any comments on what you saw? I mean, to not have Mort, A, not have him be in the bracket, but to B, lose all 4 games he played is probably something I never thought I'd see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest group play upset I've ever heard about. I only saw, maybe I think he had one overtime game and maybe towards the end of one other game. So I can't speak to whether or not it was like fumbles or what. And I know you saw most of the games yourself. It was just very odd. I mean, you can definitely get upset as a good player, but 0-4, I don't know if he just got into his own head or what happened there. But obviously, groups are deep, very deep too. So there were some groups that I did not want to be in, and his was one of them.
Yeah, I would say that his group was probably one of the hardest if you actually look how it shook out. But Nate, what makes you so how do you choose the groups? I know you gave a big shout out to QB Browns Bailey. Is it the same person? I think Bailey and QB Browns. I know you gave big shout out to QB Browns / Bailey for helping you with and Brewdog, obviously, one of the godfathers of Tecmo. It seems with all his hacking abilities and such. You gave him a big shout out to the seedings. How do you determine your groups? How does that all work?
We look at, first of all, Tundra Bowl history. We definitely take a look at that, just in the experience and the atmosphere, seeing if people have any background in that. And part of this being an almost year-round thing is paying attention to other tournaments, other live tournaments, other online tournaments. We give a little more credit, and I know you're going to hate this, but we give a little more credit to live tournaments simply because, it's a different atmosphere. I'm terrible online, and I play decently well, I feel like, in person. And I feel like there's a lot of those guys that, either don't play well online and play well live, or play well online and not as much live. So, we look at those live tournaments. Obviously, I try and consult people too. I had text Kenobi. Hawkeye was somebody that I had never seen before in person as far as play. So I had to text him because he was just at Lincoln, the week before I started seeding. So it's those type of things, just trying to use the connections in the Tecmo community to ask any unknowns. Otherwise, the seeding kind of sits itself. Division 2 is a little tougher, obviously, because there's a lot of unknowns. We tried to spread out the veteran talent there as far as seeding the ones that were known. And then they can kind of be ambassadors of game 2 for those people that have not gotten a chance to maybe play in a live tournament, to help out with matchups or playbook selection or those type of things. So we really try and take, I guess, their talent pool as a whole, not just in Tundra, but obviously, live tournaments, online tournaments, and any other known factors that we do.
And that's probably the right way to go about it, live over online, if you have that information. I mean, I think it was Big Red and Casual T. They were bragging that they had 5 of the lowest winning percentages in HSTL history, but they were still crushing it at Tundra Bowl. So there definitely is a difference between live performance and online. And I think even Barletti that same weekend had a really good performance in the other tournament in New York.
And I would say Barletti's probably the best example, right? So Barletti is known as not being very good online. Nothing against him. He's just not. He's not very good online. But, I mean, Barletti has done some serious work in the East Coast tournaments. Has done some serious...
He took out Nas in Madison.
Correct. Yes, he took out Nas and Madison, which is a big upset in Madison. And Barletti is always in like the final four of the championship game in the East Coast tournaments, where there's kind of like we kind of have like I feel like the Tecmo community is kind of broken up into four parts. You've got your Pacific Northwest guys like your Cambunas, your Grip Smokes, and
Yo, DT.
Yep, correct. Yep. And then in the South, you've got Nas, Big Hawk, Suicide King, and so on and so forth. And the East, you've got Merlis or Arncolm, whatever you want to call him, Matty D or Matt DeGeorge, Dynasty, whatever you want to call him, Barletti, TecmoBo, or not Tecmo, you're TecmoBo. I mean Turbo, formerly known as Oklahoma. War Machine is out that way if he's ever going to go to a tournament. Drake's actually out that way if he was ever going to go to a tournament. And I think Purple Haze might be out that way too, technically.
Tadeos.
Yeah, Tadeos, exactly. And then, and obviously in the Midwest, we've got all the normal players. Gats, and Regulator, and Diaz, and TecmoBo, obviously, and whoever else. So, quick question we have here in the chat is by King of NHL 94 again. When people registered, did Nate have to tell certain guys they couldn't play in the top tier and conversely the bottom tier because they were either too good or not good enough?
There were a couple people that were borderline. There were, I want to say, like 2 people I had to make a call on because they were right around that 500 mark, which is not a big deal. I mean, for the most part, people knew where they fit in. There were a couple new guys that had never played before that registered for Division I. That, if I would have had a personal conversation with them prior to them registering, I would have told them Division II is the way to go. We had a couple walk-ins too that, were saying that they were very strong Tecmo players. And I said, just for this year, you might want to consider Division II, just see how it plays out. And, next year you could always do Division I, but they had a blast in Division II. So, now that Madison's database is either MIA or going to be reconstructed or reconfigured or whatever, it's not easily accessible. We're going to go a lot more on the Tundra Bowl records as far as what really determines Division I, Division II, as well as, other live tournament action that, is out there as far as results go. So, and Brewdog's right. A lot of that online is roster construction. I was not very good at the roster construction, to be honest. So there is a big difference between that online, depending what league you're in, between online and live.
Well, you know what though, I and just to give more props to online than maybe is coming off from you is there are people who are good online that are good live. I mean, Gats, the best player there is.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really good online first before he was good live, and now he's good both. I mean, he's a 3-time defending Madison champion. I would maybe recommend, and we could talk about it some other time, maybe bring Gats in on the talk, but there's a whole point system we do for Madison, or we were doing for Madison, based on online leagues won and live tournaments won, and where you placed and so on and so forth, that like got you rankings. And if you aren't privy to that, you should really kind of talk to Gats about it, or we can do it together, because there's a whole like system that Gats was kind of running for that, talking about like Madison ranking and what have you, just so you know. But there's definitely guys who are good online. I mean, TecmoBo, who's on this pod, is one of them. Like, he literally, he's really good online and he's really good live. His situation at Tundra Bowl notwithstanding, because you can lose any game at any point to anybody.
I'm really good at group play, but that's about it.
Hopefully you guys don't. Yeah, I'm not meaning to come off like live versus online by any means. I think about 90% of the guys are probably good on both. I just fall into that anomaly 10% that really is not great at one of them.
Or you could be like me and not be good at either of them. So we'll just move on. we'll move on from that. Just so you know, Nate, as you probably are looking at the chat, Simple Simon says you couldn't have a winning record at Madison and be in Division II. Is that true?
I was I believe the wording was a winning record at either Tundra Bowl and Madison. I think it was Tundra Bowl and Madison, if I remember correctly. My brain's already starting to switch over for next year and how to word it. So, but yeah, it was the same way with J.E. Big Reds, who I'm glad went to Division I because he did really well. But he had, I think it was him and Beef Juice, I think, had like winning Madison records. But I know Jeff's Tundra Bowl record was maybe close to that. It's something that we're going to change the verbiage a little bit for next year, but guys pretty much know what division they'd fall into. So that's, it's kind of I don't know how to describe it, but people know where they're going basically.
So yeah, and that's a pretty high threshold, though. I mean, to have a winning record at Madison, you basically have to get out of group, right? I mean, you can go 2-2, but other than that, to have an actual winning record, you need to get out of group, I think, or at least in the old form.
Well, yeah, even in the new format, in the new format specifically too. I mean, you could go 2-2 in group technically and get out, but it's just in the new format, at least the one that Dave switched to recently, at least last year, is you had to win your group to get out. There was no there was no second place people come out because he spread it out and made the group so much smaller. But I don't know. I'm not sure how New York City is going to be in the fall when he runs that one, but at least that's how it was at Madison in April last year.
We'll just put it this way. So before Tundra Bowl VI, so Tundra Bowl V and prior, out of the 136 unique players there were, only 42 of them had a winning record. So anybody could have been in Division I, but those 42 obviously would not go down to Division II unless they were really close to that bubble, and I know what kind of talent they have. That's the case there.
Yeah. So then I personally I questioned the split when it was announced in my head, not out loud to people. Maybe I talked to Rico about it because obviously I usually go to the tournament with Rico. But, in hindsight and playing it, I mean, it makes sense. The only thing I don't understand, Nate, is you do the split, right? So I think there were, 42 people in Division I, but 32 made the bracket. Did that kind of feel like it made the group play seem almost foolish because you had people with one win in group play still making the bracket?
Well, there were 44 in Division I, and that's something that I wanted to make sure that we got as many games as humanly possible because a lot of guys like yourself were traveling from out of state. So I don't know if it was necessarily foolish because guys that went 1-3, I mean, you're talking guys that say going 1-3, and yeah, they still made the bracket, but they've got the talent to knock around with those guys, obviously, and so I don't know. I'm not a proponent of, hey, 95% of the guys get into the bracket. But I also think as we grow this, there have to be some kind of standard set as far as what the expectations are. And I guess guys moving forward, like I said, unless we explode exponentially here, the round of 32 is likely going to stay the round of 32 for probably another year or two until we were, if we continue on this pace.
Gotcha. Understood. And obviously, as we kind of just already talked about with TecmoBo, someone who wins one game in group like Green Magic did can take out the #1 overall seed. So, but that's great. So then going back to the tournament now, obviously, we kind of went through it all. So you call it Tundra Bowl Red Zone. So what does that exactly mean? How did you is that, how did you come up with that? And what are your plans for it in the future?
Sure. So the two guys that have streamed for me are my buddy John and my buddy Mike. And we were talking after, I want to say 2 years ago, so that would have been Tundra 4, and how to make it a better experience for people watching online. The majority of the feedback that we got is people love watching online, but what happens is when they start blowing people out, they don't want to type into YouTube some different channel to go on or go to some other website for a secondary channel. And we'd love to have been able to switch off of those games to find something more competitive for people to watch that are more exciting. So we started kicking those ideas around, and then we had decided on the Red Zone channel and Tundra Bowl V to switch between two different screens. That was a huge hit, so people were really excited about that. So we got to see some really cool, exciting games there. But this year we upped it to switching between 8 TVs in Division I. That's where you got to see a lot of exciting finishes, double overtimes, triple overtimes, last-second JJs to win the game. We got so many excellent finishes, and once I go back and watch the stream, that's going to be fantastic. It's something that was innovative, something that I think could potentially revolutionize this. And the more I talk to people that actually have the NFL Red Zone channel, tune into that more than they tune into the actual full games anymore. That's not the majority of the population by any means, but the people that have the Red Zone channel, I find that that's where they're going. And I think that streaming online, that's probably going to be Something that a lot of people can really appreciate, just seeing those exciting endings, seeing a lot of those really good matchup between, those Division I players. And, we even stream the Division II championship games. So you get to see a lot of different players instead of the same players on the stream the whole time. And you get to see a lot of competitive games.
Yeah. So just a quick shout out to the Red Zone, the Tundra Red Zone. King of NHL 94 says Tundra Red Zone is the best thing I've seen in retro sports gaming. So congratulations, Nate, to you and all your people. And TecmoBo, you and me as well, because we're part of that. And then also, Brewdog says, I want 4 games on my screen simultaneously, and he raises a good point. So obviously, if you watch the Red Zone channel on DirecTV, forget the Spectrum or Comcast, whatever the hell that is one. If you watch the one on DirecTV, sometimes Andrew Siciliano can have 3 to 4 games up there at once and kind of be commenting on all of them. Do you have plans to somehow make that happen in the future? Is that even possible with all these old TVs, or what do you think can happen for Tundra Bowl VII?
It is possible, and that was actually the plan for this year. Unfortunately, the equipment that we had failed, and it failed 2 weeks before the date. So we're working on it. It's not something we're going to promise. Again, like I said, I'm a person of my word, and I try and stick to that as much as humanly possible. So I don't want to say that we're going to do that, but that was the plan for this year, and it's something we're actively working towards. Now, whether we get it there or not, that'll yet to be seen, but that's what we're working on.
Yeah, that would be great, because I mean, as I kind of told you before too, something that we had last year when I just kind of dipped my beak in the whole announcing thing for Tundra was, the fact I could see multiple TVs in front of me with how the configuration is a little bit different. So that'd be really awesome. And TecmoBo, just for your benefit, Simple Simon in the stream chat says, with Romo, Hoff, and TecmoBo doing commentary on all of them. So basically, I think we found our niche, TecmoBo. We could quit our day jobs, and we're just going to start announcing retro gaming at all times. Forget it. I'm going to quit my job tomorrow, and then we'll just start doing that. I think we should start selling.
I knew there was money in Tecmo after all.
I know. We're just have to start selling our services to all streams. And that's probably something that I need to change for you, Nate, but personally, just so everyone watching, is that you guys didn't hear me until the bracket, and we could probably, next year, Nate, start the process in group play. Like whenever I'm not playing, if I do, if I play at all, I can just get on a mic and start talking, and maybe we can work it out. Like if TecmoBo is there again, or someone else that we want to play with, in a sense of like announcing, have them on there when I'm not, and kind of stagger the games that way, sort of thing. So that way, there's always someone announcing. But we can talk about that some other time.
I'd love to have you two do it again. I mean, you guys did a great job. So thank you guys.
We need TecmoBo to lose in the first round of 32 again to the worst seed first before he can commentate again.
I'll try to remember that when I'm formulating groups next year.
I know, right? So, with the groups, before we move on, so obviously some groups kind of seemed harder than others. Was that just kind of, lucky that it kind of worked out that way? Or, I know you had said a lot of time and energy went into it. Is it just because people were playing better that day than they had in the past? Like, for example, my Tundra record is now officially 500. I think maybe personally I'm better than 500. Maybe Brew disagrees. But obviously I don't actually know. But it's just like, so that might affect where I'd be, grouped in the future, where I could be one of those middle of the road guys in a 4-person group or a 5-person group in Division I, but I could probably take out, any of the guys above me. So like, how does that necessarily happen? You think like, because I could tell you my example is like, so Big Red, how he played at Tundra Bowl on Saturday is the best I've ever seen him play, and I've been in HSTL with him for years. So like, I mean, that's the best I've ever seen him play. I've seen him play at Tundra last year. I think I saw him at Madison too as well. I think he went to Madison. So it's just like, is it just kind of like a luck of the draw thing when like some groups seem harder than others?
We try and even up the talent as much as humanly possible. Some guys just show up to play, and they just kind of play out of their minds that day. Like you said, like you watched Jeff, that was an example of, him playing better than you've seen him play, and probably better than we obviously had him seated. I think some people are going to rise to the occasion of the challenge of seeing themselves as the 3rd out of 5. It's difficult to seat everybody 100%. But I feel like the way that we evened up the groups was probably about as even as we could have done them. You might have an argument here or there with 1 or 2 guys as far as where to switch them, but I feel like overall we did a really good job of seating as far as the equaling out of talent.
So with obviously with Tundra Bowl, you've got this big thing you're running, all the time. You talked about advertising for it. I know you probably, you sink money into it and so on and so forth. You had Harry Sidney come out. I know last year, unfortunately, was it Doug Lloyd that was supposed to come out,
Yep.
or Amen Green, one of the two of them. I forgot which one it was. But and so this year we had Harry Sidney come out. He had never seen himself in the game before. Guys, I'll tell you, it was really cool. He was wearing one of his 3 Super Bowl rings, which was, it was like hard not to notice because it was just like shining in my eyes. But I mean, how do you reach out to like real former football players and get them to just join this ridiculous thing we have going on?
Honestly, I guess I don't have any reservations about reaching out to people if I need to. The nice thing is Harry's actually, he's kind of a local celebrity type. He's on the radio every day, does a radio show. I know he used to coach at a high school football team locally here. And, I know he has his foundation, My Brother's Keeper. So knowing that he was in the game, I wanted to reach out to him. The reason I reached out to Doug Lloyd is because I actually coached football with him a number of years ago. So I reached out to him first. Thinking, that would work out. But unfortunately, there was some things going on in his own life that he wasn't able to make it. So so I wanted to reach out to Harry, knowing that we could raise money for his foundation. And the more I looked into it, the more impressed I became with, the programming on how to mentor and the mentoring for young men and boys in Northeast Wisconsin. So, Harry's a phenomenal guy. He's very down to earth, very approachable, and I wanted to get him out there so that we could really raise money for his foundation. And 100% of what we raised from his appearance for autographs and those things and the selling of his book, 100% of those proceeds went out to his foundation. I talked to him a couple days ago, and he said that thanks to the Tundra Bowl players, we actually raised $550 for his foundation, which is fantastic. Him too, he said that he'd be willing to come out again should the schedule align in the future here for future dates. So that's really cool. And he actually gave me a call today, left me a voicemail saying, hey, can I get a copy of Tundra Bowl or of Tecmo Super Bowl to put in the memory chest? So he got a kick out of it. He really enjoyed it. And, we're looking forward to partnering with them for years to come.
I hope you get it. I hope he gets your autograph, but you can give him an autographed copy of a cartridge so that he can put that in his chest. Obviously, because everyone needs to know the founder of Tundra Bowl.
No, they don't. They really don't. I'm just a guy.
It'd be kind of cool, actually, if we had if you got multiple to have them play as themselves. I just think it'd be it's just weird. It's just people don't realize. I mean, it's probably pretty crazy to people who aren't part of the community that there's this game that came out almost 30 years ago that literally has terrible graphics that, if not for Brewdog, I probably wouldn't even play anymore because he luckily gave us the flicker-free ROM for HSTL online. So when I play live, I can't see anything because it's all just blinding me. And it's like I've got epilepsy or something. But I'll tell you, it's just nuts that there's all these people that we have, that are playing this game that's almost 30 years old, and we're not playing other stuff. So it's just kind of crazy, this community and how we all get involved in this and so on and so forth. So day of, so obviously things happen behind the scenes, that maybe you can't control. Did anything really go wrong aside from the stream issues on Saturday?
We had one system that was really, really finicky. That was not working, and the 2 backup systems were not working as well as planned either. And which is ironic because I tested all of them and they all tested fine. But what happens in transport, as most people know that have Nintendos, is that the cartridges will pop up. And I've been replacing pins for years in those things. And, for some reason, all 3 of them just weren't shaking out. So that was an opportunity for, one of the people in the Tecmo community, that was Jordan Woodshed and Kevin Cavarillo. They had brought a system from the hotel room to set up for 15. So there was that aspect. Other than that, honestly, I felt it went really, really well. There weren't really any hiccups that we had found, not in the streaming, not in power, not in space, not in the food or drinks. I guess we ran out of spot. The Tecmo guys on Friday night, there were about 30 of them, ran the bar out of Spotted Cow and PBR. So that's something that we got to make sure that we have stocked on hand next year for that Friday night, because they had to wait until Saturday to get it again. Other than that, the formulation of the brackets from group play went relatively smoothly too. It was about a 40-minute lull from the last streamed game to the first streamed game of the bracket. So in that 40 minutes, we ran that simulation, which turned out to be very much a surprising hit. Guys found that to be pretty cool. So I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, overall, I mean, I can't complain really about anything on Saturday. I thought it went phenomenally. It might have went just a touch long because some guys didn't play their games right away, but with the scheduling, most of them did, and that was certainly appreciated.
Can you actually explain the simulation to me? Because I think I might have missed it and didn't really know what was going on. So just for those people who may not know what you're talking about.
Sure. Sammy Smith, Chris, who ended up coming over from Minnesota, he runs Millar's Mayhem. They had done in their Minnesota meetup, they just ran a simulated season and then took the two teams that were in the Super Bowl and used that as a matchup for one of their matches in the group play. So I wanted to take things a step further with a simulation. We knew that there was that lull. For Tundra Bowl VI, we had Kevin and Ryan Stewart. They both combined to get the world record for the NBA Jam point differential for a two-player game at Tundra Bowl V on the stream. So that provided that source of entertainment in between. This year, what we had was the simulation of the season. So as people were walking in through the doors, I randomized all 28 teams prior to. Each team had 2 slots. And as they walked in through the door, they were assigned a team for the simulation. So the first 56 people through were assigned a team. So then what we did is during that lull, we had simulated a season up on the big screen. And, obviously people were cheering their teams on and things. And then what would happen is the Super Bowl champion, players that were assigned that team, would face off in a head-to-head sudden death first score wins game. And then that's obviously for prizes. So a couple anomalies in the thing. Tampa Bay ended up winning the division, and Regulator had Tampa Bay along with Madtown, Spliff Stars. And then Coconuts had Indianapolis. Indianapolis actually ended up going 12-4, which was insane. It was a huge hit. We got a lot of it on video. That'll be uploaded when I can get a chance to upload it, because I'm working on the recap now. So, but it was a fantastic way to kind of pass the time there. We'll tweak it a little bit for next year, but for the most part, just as far as the innovation and revolution that we do, the D1, D2, the Friday night 2v2 and Retromania, and then, the simulation, I think we're going to hold tight on, the innovation and revolution type stuff for a little while. I feel like we're hitting our stride pretty well.
So with the 2v2 part, TecmoBo, you actually somehow convinced Joey Gatz, one of the best players there is, if not the best player there is, to play with you in this 2v2. And just so before we go into that, just so no one is confused, because at Madison last year, there was a 2v2 ROM that Brewdog created. That ROM is not released. And by 2v2, I mean you can actually have 2 people playing on one team and other 2 people playing on another team at the same time. So like one person could be a quarterback, one person could be a wide receiver, so on and so forth. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about in this 2v2 is basically you're partnering with somebody else, and you basically either switch offense and defense, or you switch off in quarters, just so no one's confused by that. But anyway, so TecmoBo, you somehow got Joey Gatz to be your partner, which I don't know how that happened, but congratulations to you. And you guys kind of
begged me. He begged me.
He begged you. We'll have to go back and ask him about that. But regardless, you guys got in there, and so obviously I would think that you guys are the team to beat the second you guys enter together, because of the skill set of both you guys. But so you guys ended up, for those of you who don't know, they ended up winning the whole thing. I think they had one game that was really close, but other than that, they won pretty handily. How did you guys decide your strategy? How did you guys win? What did you do kind of going into that, and how was the whole experience?
Yeah, I mean, we went offense, defense the whole time. Gatz was offense, I was defense. For me, it was pretty easy to decide, because I feel like I'm better at defense, and Gatz, as everyone knows, is a wizard with the ball, so you do not want to take the ball out of Gatz's hands. So you make sure he plays offense, and I play defense, and it worked out.
That's great. And so, was I right? Was there pretty much only one close game, and other than that, you guys kind of won handily?
Yeah, we had one 3-point game where we blocked a field goal, but I think every other game was pretty well in hand, pretty comfortable.
Well, I mean, you guys are both very good, obviously. So, and kind of moving on from that. So, TecmoBo, going into the bracket now, and group play and stuff, before we kind of get more in the nuts and bolts of the tournament and Tundra Bowl itself, but just, for people who may not have never been to a live tournament, what's your strategy in like picking the matchups, picking the teams? Like, if you know someone, obviously you don't want to put someone in their hands that they're good at. For example, you never want to give regulator QB Eagles. It's kind of like, just like you never want to give Chet Holtzbauer, Dan Marino, stuff like that. Those are like, things that at least have been told to me. So when you're doing like the group play and then obviously the bracket and you're doing like the picks and so on and so forth, you're obviously given the option to defer and be player two, so you can pick the team of the two that gets picked by the other person. But from a matchup selection and all that stuff, since you went 4-0 in group play and obviously, probably would have gone pretty far in the bracket, but not for that upset. Like, what's your strategy in that kind of format?
Yeah, I mean, group play's tough because usually you're going to have at least a couple players that you've never played before and don't know how they play. So, for me, one thing I try to watch for is if I think somebody can out-tap me. Usually the answer is no, but I had one person in my group that could out-tap me, and I've had that happen before. So I want to keep that in mind, and I don't want to call like a big running game matchup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm tapping worse. So I think I might switch to the Gets online version and just not tap at all, just because that's probably better. But I would say my strategy, not that it really works, but I mean, all the games I didn't, I deferred. I won. I don't know. Actually, no, I didn't really. Well, anyway, I like deferring. I don't mind being player two because I like being able to pick my team. And I think that just kind of makes more sense for me personally. But obviously, I haven't gone very far as I've lost in the round of 32 twice. Granted, last year I ran into the buzzsaw that was Josh Holtzbauer with, his Emil Harry hidden stats, unbelievableness last year. And this year, unfortunately, just, I caught Big Red and just had some tough breaks where I doinked the ball. But yeah, I would say that too. And Nate, you actually went further this year, I think, than you ever have before in Tundra Bowl. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, this was tied with the furthest that I've gone. Obviously, I'm a little more happy with this year because of the talent pool, with how far I went. But yeah, this year was tied for my furthest in Tundra Bowl at 4th.
Wow, that's great, man. Congratulations on that. So, we can kind of finish this up real, here in a little bit. So, looking back on Saturday, and this is a question for both you guys. We've already talked about Mort. We talked about Big Red, Jeff, and how he was doing. But, what are some of the biggest surprises that you guys remember from the day? Obviously, TecmoBo, you can even refer to what you saw on our streams when we were announcing it. And Nate, obviously, just from you walking around. But, what were, big surprises in the bracket, in the tournament, where people ended up, who made it as far as they did, and so on and so forth? And either one of you can go first. I don't care which one.
Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know some of the people that made really far runs. Maybe I've heard of them before, but I've never played them. So Justin Peters, the Shield, I don't think I've played them before, and I know they've had good showings in the past, but I thought they put up really solid showings, and I was impressed to see that firsthand. And maybe previously I'd be like, oh, I'm not worried if I draw them, but now I might be a little worried.
What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think a couple surprises. One, Justin and I have actually played tournaments. He just put together a phenomenal run. He was playing really solid all day long, and so it's a really great thing. I know he was coming off his Lincoln win, so to see him in the championship was really cool. He'd actually beat Regulator earlier in the day by 4, and then obviously lost the last 2 to him. But then also Tim as the Shield, he and I have played quite a bit. He's another local guy. But he actually beat me in the round of 16. And then he had quite the run all the way up to Justin in the semifinals there of the winners bracket. So, and then I guess the biggest surprise then for him is obviously losing on that time expired JJ. That was kind of an insane ending for a Regulator to get back in the championship. So that was really cool to see. There were a couple upsets here and there, not huge upsets, but Shield played really well all day. So did Justin. And I mean, regulator's regulator. You know what to expect with him every time. I think Gat's getting kind of bounced a little earlier than he had planned on was a little bit of a shock. But other than that, it's pretty much played out, relatively what you would think it would.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Joseph Green Magic too. He came in on the bubble, the 32 seed. Probably got in on point differential, so maybe he was just a field goal or a touchdown in group play from not even making it. Bounces me, then he beats Flo, and then he loses to Regulator. But then in the losing bracket, I saw Nate. He had a 6-3 loss to you, so another tight one against somebody that finished fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. He played extremely well. When I play him, he always plays well. So for him to be a 32 seed, like you said, it's kind of a group play thing where, maybe he didn't play so well in group play, but, he's a really good player. And the game I played against him was just phenomenal. I mean, it came down to, a last-second field goal. So, it was a great game. And he played well.
Yeah, I was
speaking of Gats as well, Hoff, as you know, Gats was still in the tournament, just in the losing bracket. He came over to us and said he's in the exact same position that we are, and we had to –
Yeah, I was surprised at that. I was kind of it was funny where he's saying he's in the same position as we are, yet he's still in the tournament and we weren't. I would say my biggest surprise is honestly was Gats getting bounced. It happens. I'm more surprised that Gats didn't get the luck he needed to not get bounced. And honestly, as I was watching Regulator, I mean he got really lucky. He had a lot of luck go his way. I mean, he had to get really lucky to beat the Shield in the losers bracket. And he had to, he just got fumble luck nonstop. I think he got some matchup luck based on the teams that Justin Peters picked in the championship. I know TecmoBo, you and I had talked a lot about it on the stream, about how we might have disagreed with his choices per se. I was really impressed with how far the Shield went. I thought he was playing really well, which is really frustrating for me because I beat him pretty handily in group because he was in my group. But congrats to him for doing that. So I thought his run was good. Justin Peters, obviously Lincoln, for those who don't know, I think that's the tournament that Kenobi runs and runs really well. Justin Peters is a good player, and he just sometimes always gets in his own way at tournaments. So it was really actually refreshing to see him do so well at a tournament without kind of shooting himself in the foot. So that was great. And Nate, obviously your run, nice job. Surprised that, TecmoBo got knocked out so early, but things happen, obviously. And then I'd probably say, lastly, I think everyone kind of expected it to be like a Gats Regulator final, like it always has been. But that game, that game was still pretty special to watch the two of them kind of go at it. So, it was a great day, and I think that I'm stoked for next year when it happens again. And I think that the guys who go are great, and I just think the level of Tecmo you see played, just like if you guys have been watching the stream at all, we had the last few games of the bracket on. It's almost the championship game is almost over here. Right now, I believe the second game between Justin Peters and Regulator. So that the level of, there's a quarter left in it. The level of Tecmo we were watching was just really, really high quality. But that's pretty much all I have for this, guys. What else did you want to talk about? Anything?
Just Gats' mix-up with Kenny and Keith Jackson is probably worth a minute.
What happened there? Go ahead.
So apparently, I think in his game against the Shield, he was playing Kenny Jackson the whole game and not Keith Jackson, and didn't realize.
Wow, that is so funny. Fun fact: I had a game. It was I think it was in Thunderdome, actually. The online tournament that War Machine runs. And for those of you watching or who have never played in it before, that is starting here in the near future. War Machine and I are going to do a pod on, I think, Sunday the 17th for it to reveal it, and we're going to be taking that tournament out of archives here soon. Also runs 2K for those of you if you want to join the waiting list, which a new league in on T-Borg. But anyway, I had a game at Thunderdome where I was the Dolphins and I forgot to put Dan Marino back in, and somehow I didn't notice, which was terrible. So, I mean, I feel his pain there, but that's nuts. And mentioning that the Shield actually, so he knocked Gats into the losers bracket, which is really ironic because in the Madison groups last year, the Shield being in his group was like this big ordeal. And I don't know if you guys remember any of that, but it was like this huge ordeal where Gats went nuts because the Shield was in his group. I don't even know why. And then the Shield, honestly, if not for either a botched punt or maybe a different play call, should have beat Regulator. The luck that TecmoBo was talking about was that Regulator basically won that game on a full field Mike Tomczak bomb to Johnny Bailey, JJ in the end zone. So it's just the Shield could have very easily been in Regulator's spot against Justin Peters in the finals. But that Gats mistake is definitely not very Gats-like.
No, it really wasn't. It was quite interesting to see that, because of anybody that I would think to make that mistake, he'd probably be the very last person I would think to make that mistake.
No, I'd agree. So, I mean, before we get going here, Nate, do you have anything you want to say about next year? Any big plans? Anything you want to potentially, plug?
No, I mean, I just want to say thanks to everybody for their continued support. All the, social media sharing, all the word of mouth, just checking in on the stream and, obviously coming out to the tournament. I put this stuff on for you guys, and, our team is 100% behind that. We just want to provide a great experience for people for Tecmo, and just part of the camaraderie and brotherhood is going together, and just really enjoy putting this on for you guys. Hopefully you guys all are able to come out next year. We'd love to have you, and we'll keep doing it for a while here now, and we just, like I said, love having the tournament for guys. So thank you for your continued support.
Yeah, for those of you who have never experienced Tundra Bowl, you definitely should try. It's definitely worth the flight, drive, whatever you have to do to get to Green Bay when Tundra Bowl is. It's been, it's habitually been a Pro Bowl weekend. Not sure if it's staying that way or next year or not. Nate hasn't announced a date, but it's definitely worth it if you haven't. There's some of the best players there are there. I would love to try to get some of the guys from the Pacific Northwest, the South, and the East there. Unfortunately, this past year, the East Coast had their own Bronx Bowl at the same time that Turbo actually won, which was an interesting format. If you guys didn't hear my pod, go listen. Had an hour-long pod with Turbo on that one and his win there. But really great tournament, Nate. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all your hard work, as you know, and as everyone, I hope, and everyone doesn't. If ever you don't know, doing anything in Tecmo, whether it be running a league, running the back end of a forum, running a website, or running a tournament, it is thankless, and it's really it's really hard. So, even with the support we have of others, I really appreciate your hard work in it, and keep up the good work. And for those of you watching the stream, you just saw Regulator win Tundra Bowl against Justin Peters. So, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on. Any final words?
Just thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing the mic with me, and obviously for both of you hopping on the mic at Tundra Bowl. Really appreciate it. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Tecmo, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said. I mean, it's always great when we have well-run tournaments in Tecmo, and the more the merrier. And Nate runs a great one, and he runs, the second biggest one. So let's keep it going. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Not sure when my next pod will be. It might not be until I do that one with War Machine, where we will be talking about Thunderdome and doing the group reveal and all that good stuff. But until then, that's it, and we'll be back. Thanks again, Nate. Thanks, TecmoBo, and look forward to doing this again sometime.
Awesome. Thank you.